By 1997, Detective Miles Harrington had stopped believing in coincidence. He'd seen too many lives bend the same way under different skies. After leaving the NYPD to consult privately, he carried with him a box of old case files that refused to stay shut, especially one from Manhattan. 3 women drowned, their hair braided after death, no suspect ever found. When Chicago called, it wasn't because they wanted him, it was because a reporter made them want him. Now, with another 3 women lying cold under Mirror Lake, Miles is pulled into a city of steam, reflection, and guilt. A place where every surface shows him a version of himself he doesn't want to see. But this time someone is writing his story for him, and they know the ending. The Mirror Lake Murders. By 10 Chapters Audiobooks. Chapter 1. The Lake That Pretends to Sleep. Mirror Lake pretended to sleep. It wore a skin of morning calm, the surface holding its breath while the city clattered awake beyond the trees. You could stand there and believe it loved you. You could believe anything for a minute. Miles Harrington did not believe in minutes. He believed in patterns that survived them. He crouched where the grass turned to mud and the mud turned to water. A ring of alder and ash bowed toward the lake, as if paying their respects. The 3rd victim lay half-covered with a mylar sheet that breathed with the wind. A tech with a Polaroid leaned into the hush, the camera coughing bright square ghosts. "Hairs washed and braided," Detective Lena Vega said. "Like the others." She had a voice built of sand and late nights. The badge hung off her belt like an afterthought. Chicago PD had flown Miles in after a columnist connected dots the department didn't want connected. 3 women drowned, hair combed, braided in a simple 3-strand, hands placed at the sternum as if in prayer. It was almost nice. That was the point. Vega watched him the way you watch someone you didn't invite to your party. You profiled a case like this in New York, didn't you? Before the department thought profiling was a lobby hobby and shoved it back into the broom closet. "I did," Miles said. "We didn't catch him." A gull barked on the far pier. A jogger slowed, saw the sheet, remembered an urgent appointment elsewhere. The lake kept pretending to sleep. "Name," Vega said, nodding at the body. "Mira Hanley," an officer offered. "ID in her backpack, 31. Hospitality manager at the Palmer House." "Show me the backpack," Miles said. The officer hesitated, then looked at Vega. She gave a brittle shrug. The pack was dirt-kissed canvas, not cheap. Inside, wallet, lipstick, a paperback with a cracked spine, cat's eye, receipts, and a folded clipping from the Chicago Ledger. Miles flattened it. The headline wore its empathy like perfume. "Are You Safe Enough?" by Cass Daly. His eyes moved over the column. A gentle sermon on boundaries. An invitation to a women's safety forum she moderated in a church basement. A line prickled the back of his neck. "When the past tries to sit in your present, don't set out a chair." He knew that line. He'd written a version of it once in a training memo that went nowhere. It wasn't public. He let the paper reseal itself in his hand. Vega watched him. "Ring any bells?" "Too many," he said. They lifted the sheet. The lake light turned silver and mean. Mira's hair was clean, wet, and surprisingly tender in its care. No algae tangled it. The braid sat like a signature. "Hands placed," Vega said. "Always the same." "Not posed," Miles said. "Arranged. Posing is about the viewer. Arranging is for the arranger." Vega gave him a look that said poetry was allowed if it led somewhere. "The first 2 Nadine Cole, Elena Ruiz. Both pulled here, Southeast Bank. Both had that column clip too. A fan club or a warning label, I don't know." "What did the columnist say when you asked?" "She's cooperative, helpful. A little too available." Vega scratched something in her notebook that might have been a thought or a nail. "You look tired." "I took the last flight," he said. "From New York," she said, as if testing the word for fractures. "Why isn't your department here with you?" "I'm here as a consultant." He didn't add the NYPD had cooler toys now and warmer optics. He was the memory of a method called when the optics didn't care. They zipped the bag. The wind flapped at the sheet like an impatient hand. Somewhere downshore a kid laughed, the sound travelling wrong over water. "Come see this," Vega said. They walked 30 yards to a small inlet where branches had built a reluctant dam. Mud gave way underfoot, sucking at boots. "We found this caught in the brush." It was a barrette. Cheap, plastic, pale blue with a single star sticker half rubbed from its face. A child's thing. It didn't belong to the scene's adult order. It glowed with wrongness. "Not hers," Miles said. "How do you know?" "She wore her hair down, then someone washed it, braided it. A barrette would leave a kink. None there." He glanced at the waterline. "It's bait." Vega smiled without humor. "For who?" "Us." The city pulled itself taller behind the trees. Sirens threaded morning traffic. The lake sighed as if punctuating something unsaid. Vega flipped her notebook shut. "We brief in 1 hour. Cass Daly will be there, so will my lieutenant, who thinks publicity is a disease you get from reporters." "Your lieutenant isn't wrong," Miles said. She nodded toward the body bag. "Tell me what matters." He looked at the braid. "He's careful, he's practiced, and he wants the story told a certain way. That barrette, he's editing us." Vega's eyes flicked to the lake. "Then let's change the script." As they left the shoreline, the gulls returned, small white witnesses who would never testify. The sheet lay still now, a held breath becoming something else. Miles didn't pray, but he did something like it. He promised himself not to let the lake pretend again. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The Woman Who Writes Safety. The newsroom smelled like coffee that had been told to behave. Cass Daly's office was mostly glass and plants, the kind of careful jungle you grow when you don't trust real weather. She stood when they came in, wearing the kind of black that told you it was chosen, not default. Early 30s, shoulder-length hair, eyes that practiced alertness like yoga. "Detective Vega," Cass said, "and Mr. Harrington from New York." "Consultant," Miles said, because titles are a biography in a word, and this wasn't his. Cass smiled. "We're grateful for any help. Women in this city are sleeping with lights on. My voicemail sounds like a hurricane. You read the column." "Read the wide. In a backpack by a lake," Vega said. "Yours was folded like a saint card." Cass took the hit and let it settle. "I run an open forum in St. Bridget's basement on Tuesdays. We talk about walking home, keys as knuckles, where to look if someone grabs your wrist. I bring in a cop sometimes. Last month we had a locksmith teach deadbolts. We use what we have." "How do attendees sign up?" Miles asked. "They don't, they show up." "Names?" "First names only," she said. "It's safer. I don't keep a list." "Convenient," Vega said. Cass's jaw tilted. "You think I'm feeding a killer?" "I think a killer reads," Vega said. Cass sank into her chair. "I get 2 kinds of mail. People thanking me, and people asking me to make them invisible. Both kinds scare me, Mr. Harrington, because both think I can do something I can't." Miles looked at the wall behind her desk. Framed clippings. One from a year ago, The Unsaid Rules. Another to be believed. The careful jungle watched him through leaves broad as hands. "Do you ever quote police material?" he asked. "Public documents, sure. FOIAs are the paper version of stubbornness. Why?" He wasn't going to explain how a sentence he'd written in a report that never left a certain cubicle ghost had arrived, softened in her column. "Because jargon travels like a cold." Cass glanced at Vega, then back. "You think I took something, or someone gave me something I shouldn't have? Are we under interview or accusation?" "Neither," Vega said. "We're under 3 dead women." Cass's mouth trembled, then decided not to. "Mira came to my forum once," she said quietly. "She sat in the back like a person auditioning for the wall. She left fast." "What did she say?" "Nothing in the group. After, she asked if walking with her hair up made her safer. I said it might make her feel safer. Sometimes that's the only thing we can sell." "Did she mention anyone?" Miles asked. Cass shook her head. She asked how to stop answering letters. What kind of letters? Personal ones from a man who knew too much. The line fell between them like glass. Vega leaned in. You didn't put that in your column. I'm not a stenographer for tragedy. Some things you keep on the warm side of your ribs. Cass swallowed. Look, what do you want from me besides everything? I'll give you what I have. I keep the notes in a locked drawer. People trust me because I don't put their pain on a chart. Show us, Vega said. Cass unlocked the drawer with a small brass key, pulled a folder labeled Tues Est Brigades, and slid it across. Inside, dates, bullet points, first names in variations of neat and panicked. Mira H. appeared once, then a small asterisk, and asked how to disengage from correspondent says he knows my old life. Miles felt the room move a millimeter to the left. He had received letters like that once, pleas that smelled of rust. What do you mean, old life? He asked. Everyone here is negotiating an old life, Cass said. It's why women come. Vega tapped a name. Who's Eve? Cass's lip curled at one corner. Eve comes every week. She brings cookies like a guilty aunt and never eats them. She takes notes she pretends are for a friend. I want to meet her, Vega said. You will, Cass said. She makes herself inevitable. They were leaving when Cass said, Wait. She went to another drawer and took out a manila envelope. This came yesterday. No return, no note, just this. Inside lay 3 Polaroids, the lake. The first 2 victims before the sheets, taken from angles that suggested familiarity with the perimeter tape. On the back of the third, a message in block letters. You're asking the wrong question. What question should we be asking? Vega said softly. Miles turned the photo in his hand. The ink bled into the paper like a decision. Who taught him the right ones? He looked up. Cass was paler now, her careful jungle suddenly theatrical. Do I need protection? She asked. Do you take your own advice? Vega said. Cass exhaled. Sometimes when it fits. Then start there, Miles said. When they stepped back into the newsroom, the coffee had gotten colder by osmosis. Outside, Michigan Avenue played Noon like a scratched record. Miles's phone buzzed. A New York area code he knew too well. He let it die in his pocket. Old life calling, Vega said. Wrong question, he said. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. The Man Who Cleans Edges. A park custodian named Boyd Klein pushed leaves into order as if he could save them from becoming dirt. Late 40s, face like a barn-wooden, useful, holding old tools. He looked at Miles and Vega from under a cap, stamped with a faded shamrock. I cleaned this side of the lake, he said. 6 years before that Navy, before that nothing I'm proud of. Do you pick up barrettes? Vega asked, showing him the pale blue one in a plastic bag. Pick up everything. Kids drop universes, that ain't one of ours. You see women walking alone at night? Miles asked. I see everyone, Boyd said. Drunks who want to sing, lovers who think trees are deaf, joggers outrunning birthdays, cops looking for reasons, men who don't know how to be alone with themselves. You ever see Mira Hanley? Probably. I don't learn names. Names make you indoor. What about cameras? Vega asked. You see someone taking pictures inside the perimeter, Boyd thought. There's a kid, not a kid, 20-something. Wears an army jacket like he's auditioning for someone else's war. Takes pictures of anything that can't say no. Calls himself Lewis. Sells prints at the indie market by the Brown Line. Where would he stand to take these? Miles asked, holding up the Polaroid. Boyd pointed toward a notch between 2 old elms. There. Step right. The mud keeps you silent. You ever step there? Vega asked. Once, he said. Tripped on a root. The lake laughed. They thanked him. When he turned away, he didn't go back to the leaves. He looked at the water like a man rereading the same ending. Lewis first, Vega said. No, Miles said. Eve first. St. Bridget's basement was a cinder block prayer under fluorescent lights. The chairs looked like apologies. Eve arrived in a coat, trying to look expensive and almost managing, 50 maybe, or 30, with a brutal decade. She set cookies on a table like an offering and avoided every gaze. Cass introduced them. "This is Detective Vega and Mr. Harrington. They're here to talk about safety." Eve smiled with her teeth, not her eyes. "Is safety a perspective?" "It's a practice," Cass said. "Let's open with boundaries." The hour looped. Women told stories to a center they never faced. After Eve hovered near the exit, the coat smelling faintly of freesia and fear. "Eve," Vega said, "can we borrow 5 minutes?" "Borrow," she repeated as if testing the word. They sat at a card table that had hosted more bad coffee than conversation. Eve's fingers threaded together, a private braid. "You come every week," Vega said. "Practice," Eve said. "If you don't practice, you forget which way the door opens." "Cass says you take notes for a friend." "Everyone's got a friend," Eve said. "Did you know Mira Hanley?" Miles asked. Eve blinked, surfacing. "She came twice, believed in Upper East Side safety, the kind money buys." "Did she talk about letters?" Vega asked. Eve's face closed. "Everyone gets letters." "From who?" "From men who think women are P.O. boxes." "You get letters?" Miles asked. "I used to," she said. "From a man who told me who I was before I learned, said he could tell me who I'd be if I did it right." "Do you still have them?" "I burned them," Eve said. "But smoke learns you." "Would you recognize the voice again?" Vega asked. "Voices wear new coats," Eve said, "but they don't change their weather." When they let her go, she left without her cookies. Miles looked at the tray. Chocolate chips like small moons. "You think she's hiding something?" Vega asked. "Everyone is," Miles said. "She's hiding the shape, not the existence." They found Lewis at the indie market, pretending to be poor behind a table of black and white prints. His war jacket hung open to show a Joy Division tee bought new to look old. His hair practiced indifference. Vega lifted a print. The lake, fogged, beautiful. "You sell grief?" "I sell reflections," he said. "If people find grief in them, that's on them." Miles laid down the Polaroid like a badge. "Yours?" Lewis studied it. "Nah, cheap stock. I use Fuji." "Where's the best place to shoot?" Vega asked. "West Notch. Mud keeps quiet. You bring boots, you leave no prints." Miles smiled, small and sharp. "You talk like a pamphlet." "I read a lot," Lewis said. "Ever read Cass Daly?" Vega asked. "Everyone reads Cass. She's Chicago's headlamp." "Ever write to her?" Miles asked. "I'm not a letter guy." "You're a picture guy," Vega said. "Everything's a picture if you learn to frame it." When they left, Miles said, "He's wrong." "About what?" "About everything being a picture. Pictures end the instant they begin. This isn't ending." "Then we make it," Vega said. Miles's motel room smelled like citrus covering something older. He spread his notes on the bedspread. The hideous floral became a case file. An envelope lay under the door. No stamp, no address. Inside, a page torn from Crime Scene Protocol 2nd edition, a paragraph circled, "Do not release ritual details to the press. They invite repetition." Below, in block letters, "You did." He sat on the bed while the air conditioner coughed. Someone had reached back into his life and grabbed a handful of him. He could hear the Manhattan case whispering in the vents, the one that didn't end, the one that wore clean shoes. His phone rang. The New York number again, that old life knocking. He let it ring. When it stopped, the silence felt louder. He wrote 3 words on the back of the torn page. Who taught him? Then underlined taught, until the paper thinned. Outside, the motel's neon vacancy flickered like a tired eye. Across the lot, a woman laughed into the kind of darkness that didn't laugh back. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The fourth body changes the story. They pulled the fourth body at dawn from the north end, where cattails kept secrets and the water kept score. The scene felt familiar in the way a toothache becomes a roommate. But the signature was wrong. "Hair's not braided," Vega said. It wasn't washed either. Lake hair dark, tangled with green. Hands crossed at the waist, not the sternum. No barrette. A new wrongness, a cheap glass bead necklace, half shattered, likely broken during the struggle. "Copycat?" an officer asked, hungry for closure. Miles crouched. The skin was marbled with the lake's long cold. A bruise bloomed under the right jaw like Thor. "No," he said. "Someone wants not the same. Look at the knuckles." 2 left knuckles were scraped in a straight line. He tried to braid, Miles said. Failed, got interrupted or clumsy. Either way, he adapted. Adapted to what? Vega asked. To time. Or to fear, his or hers. The ID said Paige Larkin, 24, theology grad student at Loyola. In her waterlogged backpack was a stapled essay. Confession without contrition, rituals of false cleansing. Christ, Vega murmured. Miles skimmed. Larkin argued that confession without intent becomes theatre, letting harm persist. Academic tone, heat underneath. Midway, a line he knew too well. When the past tries to sit in your present, don't set out a chair. He passed it to Vega. Everyone's learning the same language. From the same teacher, she said. They brought Cass daily to the perimeter tape. She looked like she hadn't slept, or had slept in a chair that didn't care about her back. At the necklace, she flinched. I know her, Cass said. Paige came last week asking whether ritual cleanses or perfumes sin. Did she say she was writing this? Vega lifted the essay bag. Cass nodded, then regretted it. She wanted sources, I suggested. Things. What things? Miles asked. My columns, a few books, some of your work. She winced. Published pieces interviews, not internal reports. How does she know my internal phrasing? Cass stared at the lake until it reflected her as someone else. Because words escape. Someone leaks, or someone memorizes what gets said in rooms that think they're quiet. Your forum, Vega said. My forum is a basement with cheap coffee and women who should be alive, Cass snapped. If a man hunts there, that's not on the tile. The cattails hissed under a small wind. We should close the forum, Miles said. No, Cass said. We police it. Watch who watches. My women need the room. Vega watched Miles decide. He chose the living over the perfect. 2 officers, he said. Quiet. Observers who look like bad lighting. Cass nodded, relief and dread sharing a chair. Eve sat in the back again, taking notes like she was owed by memory. After the meeting, Miles cornered her gently by the bulletin board, where toddler's art competed with grief flyers. Did you know Paige? He asked. Eve's eyes went to the floor. She talked about theatre, how confession is applause. She said applause makes monsters brave. Anyone paying too much attention to her? Attention is a kind of hand, Eve said. Men use it like one. Names, Eve. She glanced at the door as if it might inhale her. A man comes sometimes. Stands in the hall, never sits. Says he's waiting for someone who never arrives. Smells like raincoat. Watches the door like a thief. Cass asked him to leave once. He said he was there to drive a friend home. The friend never came. See his face? Faces are good at being faces, she said, but he had a seam. A seam. Like a healed scar. She touched her jaw where Paige's bruise had bloomed. Here. Lewis wasn't at the market. His table sat like a staged absence. The vendor next door said he'd gone out of town, spur of the moment to shoot storms near Joliet. Vega didn't move her head. Run the name, she told an officer. Run the jacket. Run is everything. Back at the motel, another envelope waited, not under the door this time, but on the pillow. The maid said a woman had dropped it off. Nice lady, the kind who says your name like she's sharing it. Inside, a single center-justified page, typed like a manifesto. If you took your own advice, they'd be alive. Ask yourself who wanted your words in their mouth. Ask who makes a ritual out of no. He read it twice, then studied the strikes. An old typewriter, faithful and cruel. He flipped the page and saw faintly, bleed through from a previous sheet, a grocery list. Milk, eggs, rosemary, twine. Vega knocked once and entered. Lewis is clean on paper. No record. No address that isn't a couch. But he's in the background of 3 crowd shots at 2 of Cass's forums. He's either a shadow or a hobby. Miles handed her the note. Someone came into my room. Great, she said. We can charge them with breaking and entering and being poetic while women drown. He sat on the bed. The hideous bedspread did its job, reminded him the world rarely matched anyone's standards. The 4th victim wasn't a copycat. He adapted. Adaptation means pressure. Something changed. Like what? Like the lake listening, he said, or a woman who fought back. Vega watched the parking lot hold its breath. We need a leak map. Everyone who knew about the braid, wash hands. Everyone who saw your report that never went public. My report didn't circulate, he said, except it did. He thought of Manhattan's old halls, how words travel hungrier than paper. A captain who loved the sound of his briefings, a junior who took notes to be noticed, a woman who'd once written him under a borrowed name, asking how monsters choose their meals. He picked up the motel phone. Chicago Ledger, newsroom, Cass Daily. Vega arched an eyebrow. Gonna yell at a journalist? Gonna ask who types her notes? Why? He looked at the typed page again, rosemary, twine, and heard the clack of a faithful machine. Because someone in her world still uses a ribbon that bites, he said. Vega's smile was sharp and tired. Let's feed ourselves first. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. The Woman with the Typewriter. Cass's office was part newsroom, part greenhouse. Plants leaned toward the tall windows like witnesses trying to overhear the city. The air smelled of ink, dust, and ambition. The woman behind the desk wasn't Cass. Janet Hill, she said, standing too fast, smoothing her skirt as if that could rewrite the moment. Cass's assistant. I handle dictation, mail, scheduling, whatever's needed. Her smile was neat but thin, the kind of smile that had been practiced for bosses and policemen alike. Miles's eyes wandered to the beige Olympia typewriter on a side table. It was old but well cared for, ribbon half-spooled, the keys worn smooth from loyalty. You still use that? Janet beamed faintly. Every day. Computers crash. This doesn't. Cass says it gives her columns character, makes them sound like they've lived. Vega leaned against the desk, flipping a pen between her fingers. You ever respond to reader letters? Janet nodded. Sometimes. Cass dictates them when she's pressed for time. I type, tidy the grammar, add signatures. It's routine. Do you sign them as yourself? Vega asked. A pause. Cass prefers pseudonyms, Janet said finally. Safety reasons. We get some. Intense mail. Miles's voice was quiet, but edged. You ever use the name Eve? Janet blinked, genuinely or convincingly. Eve? Someone calling herself Eve attends the forum. She also writes letters to a man who arranges women at the lake, Miles said. You type those letters? Janet's throat moved. Detective, I type hundreds of things. You're implying something dangerous. I'm implying something specific, Miles said. Eve isn't just a name. It's a role. Janet turned toward the window, light bending around her face. Cass gets letters every day. Victims, stalkers, copycats, fans. I can't tell which are which. Who else sees them? Vega asked. Just us. She doesn't trust interns. I file everything alphabetically by first name, safer that way. Safer for who? Vega asked. For everyone, Janet said softly. The air between them held its breath. Miles gestured toward the Olympia. You mind if we take a look? Of course, she said too quickly, stepping aside. The typewriter smelled faintly of oil and lavender. A page sat half-rolled inside, half-finished. When fear becomes familiar, it stops being fear. It becomes furniture. Miles studied the words. That's Cass's writing. She dictates, I type, Janet said. Does she dictate at her desk? Sometimes while walking, sometimes over the phone. Vega tapped a key. The letter M left a faint echo of red. You change ribbons often? When they bleed through, Janet said, suddenly defensive. It's not a crime to prefer tradition. Not yet, Vega muttered. They left the office with a locker key in hand. Janet had given it reluctantly. Cass stores weird mail at the gym, she'd said. She believes bad energy should sweat. Inside the locker was a neat horror. 12 Polaroids labeled by date, showing each victim before discovery. Lake water shimmered silver in flashlight light. The last photo page was time-stamped 2 hours before her body was found. On the back, faintly typed upside down, mirror. He isn't guessing, Vega said. He's rehearsing. No, Miles said. He's directing. Someone's telling him where to stand. When Cass finally arrived, hair damp, eyes sleepless, she froze at the sight of the photos. Where did you get those? In your gym locker, Vega said. Filed like tax receipts. Cass sat down hard, breath thin. I was trying to protect the women. If I showed these, the police would say it encouraged copycats. If I hid them, maybe it would stop. Did it? Vega asked. Cass looked away. No. Miles picked up a photo, tracing the light bleeding through the frame. Someone has access to your drafts, Cass. Your phrasing. Even mine. That line. When the past tries to sit in your present. It came from a report that never went public. Cass's eyes flickered. Then someone stole it. Or typed it, Miles said, nodding toward the Olympia. Machines like that don't lie, they just remember. Vega turned to Janet, who lingered at the door, pale and silent. We'll need the ribbon, she said gently. Janet's mouth opened as if to protest, then closed. Am I in trouble? Miles answered before Vega could. Not if you're honest. Janet nodded, twisting her hands. I'll bring it in tomorrow. Cass needs it for a column tonight. Make it early, Vega said. When they left, Miles pocketed the last Polaroid. The word mirror glimmered faintly in the light. He's not hiding from us, Miles murmured, as they stepped into the rain. Vega zipped her coat. Then what's he doing? Miles looked toward the lake's direction where the skyline broke into reflection. He's showing us how to look. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. The Man Who Wanted to Be Seen. They found Louis asleep in his car behind a shuttered gas station near Joliet, jacket folded like a pet, on the passenger seat. His eyes had the practiced emptiness of someone who wants to be unreadable. Vega tapped the window. Out, he obliged, hands visible, streetwise polite. I go where the weather is, he said. Fog's a studio that doesn't charge. They searched the car. No rope, no combs. Under the floor mat, a library card, Page Larkin. Louis stared. I don't know how— Don't, Vega said. That sentence never finishes well. They took him in. He didn't lawyer up. He asked if Cass knew his work. She said you're persuasive, Vega lied. He smiled, small and unguarded. She gets me. They developed a confiscated roll of film. Landscapes. Birds. Fog that wanted to be myth. Then a frame that changed the air. The lake at night. A man's reflection at the waterline, jaw traced by a pale seam. He held a rectangular case by its handle, the old-fashioned kind for a typewriter. Your friend? Vega asked. Louis squinted. I've seen him. He sets up chairs at the Forum, silent guy, like furniture you forget you're leaning on. Name? Dunno, he smells like bleach. Miles filed the scent away. How do you shoot without leaving prints? He asked. Louis brightened. A boy offered attention. West Notch. 2 careful steps, then the mud goes quiet. Wear boots. Rinse them after in the culvert so your treads don't tell stories. You sound like a pamphlet, Miles said. I read a lot, Lewis said again, unashamed. They released him with a shadow. Outside, Miles watched the city fold its mourning around a man who wanted to be seen but not responsible. Not our killer, Vega said. No, Miles said, but he's an index, he points. They ran Silent Guy through church directories and volunteer lists. One name rose with the easy guilt of the obvious. Samuel Reed, St. Bridget's custodian, part-time theology student, former seminarian expelled in '88 for conduct unbecoming. Address, the rectory's 3rd floor, noted for punctuality, quietness, and helpfulness with the ladies' group. Bleach, Vega said, and a seam, Miles added. They watched the rectory that night from a car that smelled like old assignments. At 9:12, Reed locked the basement and walked toward the lake with a metal box that clinked like tools. Now, Vega said. Wait, Miles said. At the waterline, Reed knelt. From the box he removed a brush, lavender shampoo, a braid comb, a pale blue barrette, each object placed with reverence. He set a mannequin head on his knee, wet the synthetic hair, began to braid. His lips moved. The lake held the words like gossip. Miles caught 3. Forgive. Repeat. Remember. Reed turned, saw them, and didn't flinch. You shouldn't be here, he said. Neither should you, Vega answered. When they cuffed him, he asked one favor. Let me finish her hair. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7, The Man with the Seam. The interrogation room smelled of bleach and something older, an echo of church candles and floor polish. Samuel Reed sat across from Miles and Vega, hands folded as if in prayer, wrists cuffed but calm. He was middle-aged, spare, the line of a scar, the seam, Eve had called it, tracing from jaw to neck like a stitch holding him together. His eyes were steady, almost kind. I washed them, Reed said. Braided their hair, crossed their hands, but I didn't kill them. His voice was steady enough to make you believe him. You expect us to think someone else drowned them and you just finished the job? Vega said. I gave them dignity, Reed said. The killer left them naked to the lake. I returned order to the chaos. Miles leaned forward, elbows on the table. Why the same ritual every time? The braid, the clean hair, the folded hands. Reed smiled faintly. Because it matters. Hair is the last thing the body remembers. Cleaning it is a kind of forgiveness. Vega flipped open her notebook. And the blue barrette. An offering, he said. A small kindness. They didn't have much of that. Miles studied him. Reed didn't look insane. He looked certain, which was worse. Who are you forgiving, Samuel? The author, Reed said. Miles's pen stopped. The author. The one who writes the story. The one who gives the words shape. I only keep the pages neat. Vega snorted softly. You mean God? Reed's eyes flicked up. Not that author. They let the silence grow heavy, a weight that usually cracks something. Reed didn't break. He sat in it like a man used to confession. When they left the room, Vega exhaled. He's either lying beautifully or he's a saint with a cleaning fetish. He's not lying, Miles said. He's quoting. Quoting who? Cass Daly. They found his quarters in the church rectory, a monk's cell of order and ritual. A single bed perfectly made, the mirror covered by a linen cloth. On the desk, shampoo bottles labeled by date, combs arranged like instruments. And in a drawer, a bundle of thin paper tied with blue ribbon-typed letters, edges softened from handling. Each signed Eve. Vega read aloud. You are the only one who listens, the only one who sees the sin without flinching. Another letter. Samuel, your work is a mercy. The women come to you so they can leave clean. The last bore blue ink at the bottom. Keep them safe. You understand my words better than anyone. C. Cass Daly's signature, stylized and unmistakable. When Cass arrived, she looked smaller than usual, as if the air had thinned around her. I wrote to him, she admitted. At first, just for research, I was building a column about obsessive men. He was interesting, lonely, harmless, I thought. Vega leaned against the wall, arms crossed. So you catfished a potential killer. Cass glared. He wasn't a killer. Not yet, Vega said. Miles unfolded one of the letters. You signed it C, Cass. He called you the author. He built a religion out of your columns. Cass's voice trembled. I was trying to teach empathy, to use his faith as a mirror. Empathy and manipulation share a mirror, Miles said quietly. You gave him scripture, he just followed it. Cass sank into the nearest chair. I didn't think he'd take it literally. They always do, Vega said. Reed's second interview went deeper. He described finding the first body one morning while cleaning debris near the shore. The lake offered her to me, he said softly. I couldn't leave her dirty. Who killed her? Miles asked. The author knows, Reed said. He or she leaves them where I can see. I complete the story. You think you're helping, Miles said. I am helping, Reed replied. I make them presentable, I make them readable. Vega's voice dropped. Readable? Every crime is a sentence, Reed said. If no one punctuates it, it never ends. He looked directly at Miles. You understand that, don't you? You wrote the words she uses. You created the language. Miles felt a slow nausea spread through his chest. What do you mean she uses? The columnist, Reed said, smiling faintly. The one who writes safety. She gave me the ritual. You gave her the words. Back in the observation room, Vega muttered, So our prophet was ghostwritten by a journalist, and the journalist stole lines from your report. Miles didn't answer. He was staring through the glass, not at Reed, but at his reflection beside the man's. For a second they looked like two sides of the same mirror. Reed's not our killer, Miles said finally. He's an echo. Then who's the voice? Vega asked. Miles thought of the Olympia typewriter, the steady rhythm of its keys. Janet Hill sitting in Cass's office, smiling that polite, hollow smile. Her fingers always moving, always listening. The one who types the words, Miles said. The one who knows how to make them sound holy. That night, Miles couldn't sleep. The motel's walls felt thinner, the air heavier. He poured himself coffee that tasted like evidence and went over the case notes again. Reed, the seam, the ritual, the reverence. Cass, the words, the guilt, the columns. Janet, the access, the typewriter, the ink that bled red before black. Somewhere in that triangle the truth breathed. He picked up the last of Reed's letters and read it again under the weak yellow lamp. Eve says confession cleanses, but only if the author believes I believe. Miles set it down. In the margin, faint but visible, was a small smudge of blue ink fingerprint-sized. Not Eve's. Someone correcting the script. Someone who couldn't resist editing the story. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. The Confession That Didn't Fit. Forensics tore Reed's confession apart by breakfast. The timing was wrong. The bruises didn't match his hands. Water in the lungs proved the women were already dead when Reed washed and arranged them. He hadn't killed them, he'd curated them. Vega dropped the report on the table, pages still warm from the printer. So our holy janitor's just been polishing corpses. Miles didn't look up. He's not lying. He's completing someone else's work. The author again, she asked. He nodded. And whoever that is, they're not done. Vega exhaled sharply. Then we start where language lives, Cass's office. Cass met them looking hollowed out. Her coffee trembled in her hands. You found the real killer yet? Not yet, Vega said. But we found something else. Your assistant's fingerprints under yours on a Polaroid. Cass frowned. Janet. She handles my drafts, sure, but she's incapable of violence. Incapable. Miles's voice was gentle, surgical. She's capable of organization and obsession. Sometimes that's all violence needs. Cass's confusion hardened into disbelief. Janet types, that's all. Vega held up a photo from the locker. She also develops film, cleans up your wording, manages your mail. You trust her with everything, right down to your voice. She's efficient, Cass said. She's you, Vega said. She copies your phrasing perfectly. Cass looked at Miles. You think Janet's behind this? I think she's the bridge, he said. Between you, Reed, and whoever's drowning these women. Cass shook her head. She's quiet, polite. She brings me tea. Miles studied her carefully. Quiet people make the best listeners, and listeners always hear too much. Janet's apartment was a museum of calm. Pale curtains, soft music, plants lined up like confession booths. But the peace didn't reach the desk. There, the Olympia typewriter sat like a relic. Sheets of paper were scattered around it, drafts of Cass's columns, letters, fragments of thoughts that began as journalism and ended as scripture. Vega picked up a pamphlet on women's safety, its margins scrawled in red. Ritual as proof, confession, wreaks you control, visibility, cleanses sin. Another page bore a list of Cass's column titles, cross-referenced with the murder dates. At the bottom, in Janet's neat script, every message needs a body. Miles turned to the small bookshelf beside the desk. Crime scene manuals, theology texts, and a copy of The Courage to be Disliked with pages underlined in blue ink. In a drawer, they found carbon copies of the Eve letters, each edited, sentences trimmed, punctuation changed, emotion fine-tuned like a script rehearsal. Vega read one aloud. Samuel, your faith redeems you. Keep them safe. She flipped to another. Pain must be witnessed, or it doesn't exist. Cass's blue ink bled through one copy, but most were Janet's work-typed, retyped, perfected. Miles leaned close to the typewriter. The ribbon glistened dark red to black, identical to the impressions found on the Polaroids. He pressed a single key, M, and the letter punched with a ghost of red, first, black, second. The same machine, he murmured. The same ghost. The refrigerator hummed in the quiet. Vega paced the small room. She built a religion out of Cass's words, took your old phrasing, his rituals, and her own sense of justice. Miles opened another drawer. Inside lay a box of everyday things, hairpins, a child's barrette, small fragments of glass beads, each labeled with a date. She collected mementos, he said. Every story needs props. When the door finally opened, Janet stood there with a grocery bag looped over one arm, milk, eggs, rosemary, and twine. She froze when she saw them, eyes flicking from Vega to Miles to the open drawers. You could have called, she said softly. I'd have let you in. We did, Vega said. You just stopped picking up. Janet set the bag down carefully. Cass sent you? She's worried, Miles said. Says you've been acting different. I've been awake, Janet said. Someone had to tell the truth. What truth? Vega asked. That pain ignored becomes myth, Janet said. Cass writes to comfort, you write to explain, but none of you listen. They screamed into silence, so I turned up the volume. You staged their deaths, Vega said. I gave them meaning, Janet whispered. Miles stepped forward slowly. Meaning isn't yours to give. Janet looked at him with a sad, pitying smile. Then why did you give her the words? Outside, Vega sealed the evidence bag. She's unraveling. She's composing, Miles said, and the story isn't finished. He looked back at the apartment window, where Janet's silhouette stood perfectly still behind the curtain, as if waiting for her next line. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. The Forum Collapses. By the next evening, the St. Bridget's basement no longer looked like a place for healing. The folding chairs were still arranged in a circle, but the air had changed, thicker, cautious, as if the room itself knew too much. Word had leaked about arrests, letters, the lake. People came out of morbid curiosity as much as fear. Vega stationed 2 plainclothes officers near the exits, pretending to be parishioners. Miles stood at the back, leaning on the wall, notebook tucked away. He wasn't here to take notes. He was here to watch. Cass stood at the front under flickering fluorescent light, her hands tight around a styrofoam cup. "If anyone has received letters, anonymous, unsettling, poetic, please, speak to Detective Vega after the session," she said. Her voice trembled but didn't break. "We're not here for rumors, we're here for truth." A woman coughed into her sleeve. Another clutched her purse like armor. The walls, painted institutional beige, seemed to pulse with unease. Eve was there, sitting in the back row, her ever-present notebook half-filled, cookies untouched on the table beside her. Miles walked over quietly. "Seen Samuel lately?" he asked. She shook her head. "He's gone. When men lose purpose, they vanish. He used to hum while setting up chairs. The silence after him feels heavier." Miles nodded slowly. "What about Janet?" Eve's lips pressed together. "The typist?" she whispered. "She listens too well. Some people shouldn't be allowed to listen." Before he could ask more, Janet slipped in through the side door, clutching her notepad to her chest. Her hair was pinned neatly, her eyes restless, scanning faces the way a reader searches for punctuation. Cass noticed her, but didn't stop talking. "The forum will be on hold for a while," she said, voice breaking slightly. "Until the police say it's safe." The crowd rippled with anxiety gasps, objections, murmurs of "no, please." A woman near the front began to cry. Cass swallowed, trying to sound firm. "This is temporary. Healing doesn't die just because we pause." When the meeting ended, people scattered quickly, eager to escape the air of something unfinished. Only Cass, Miles, Vega, and Janet remained. Eve had left her cookies behind again, like always. Cass sank onto one of the folding chairs, rubbing her temples. "I started this to help," she said. "Now it's a headline." Miles crouched beside her. "You didn't kill anyone." "Didn't I?" Cass whispered. "I wrote the words that started everything, the letters, the ritual, the—" "You wrote to comfort," Miles said. "She wrote to convert." Across the room, Janet pretended to organize papers, her shoulders rigid. Vega watched her like a cat cornering a mouse. "Janet," Vega said finally, "can we talk?" Janet looked up, startled, but smiled politely. "Of course, Detective, always happy to cooperate." Vega held out a folder. "We found your prints on Paige Larkin's essay." Janet blinked. "That's impossible. I never met her." "You didn't have to," Miles said. "She emailed Cass a draft. You printed it." Cass looked stricken. "Janet, why were you handling Paige's essay?" "I handle everything you write," Janet said, as if it were obvious. "That's what you pay me for. You dictate, I type, you inspire, I preserve." Vega flipped open the folder, showing copies of Eve's letters. "You also write under other names. Eve, C. Sometimes even Cass herself." Janet's breathing changed. "I did what you wouldn't. I gave voice to pain." "By feeding it to a man who washed corpses," Vega said sharply. Janet's gaze turned glassy. "He needed guidance. They needed witnesses. I simply connected the two." Cass's voice cracked. "Janet, you used my name." "I borrowed it," Janet said, soft but sure. "You weren't using it properly." Miles stepped closer, careful not to spook her. "Where are the photos, Janet? The ones from after the last victim?" Her eyes flicked toward the door. "I kept one. The story needed an ending." "The story's over," Vega said. "No," Janet whispered. "The story ends when people stop pretending they're innocent." The tension snapped like glass. Vega gestured for an officer. "Bring her in." But Janet stepped back, trembling. "You'll twist it. You'll make me another villain. That's not the ending." "Then tell it," Miles said quietly. "Your version. On record." Janet's lips quivered, almost smiling. "You'll hear it soon enough." She turned to Cass. "You'll understand at the lake. That's where truth looks best." Then she slipped out through the side door before anyone reacted, the night swallowing her as neatly as a page turning. Cass grabbed Vega's arm. She's going to the lake. Miles was already moving. She's going to finish it. 20 minutes later, the church basement was empty except for the hum of the vending machine and the echo of what had been said. Eve's cookies remained on the table, untouched. Miles glanced at them on his way out, small, perfect circles, cooling under fluorescent light. He didn't know why, but they felt like punctuation marks, closing a sentence none of them wanted to read aloud. End of Chapter 9. Chapter 10, The Author Revealed. Dawn made Mirror Lake look honest. It wasn't. Janet stood barefoot in the shallows, skirt dark with water, typewriter on the dock like a sacrament. Cass approached alone, mic live under her collar. Vega and Miles watched from the west notch, mud holding their steps. "Janet," Cass said, "talk to me." "I gave them audience," Janet said. "Isn't that what you taught me, that to be believed you must be seen?" "Being seen shouldn't require dying," Cass said. "They were already dying," Janet whispered. "Dying in pieces. Letters no one read. Confessions practiced on bathroom mirrors. I made the city look. I made the story coherent." "Did you kill them?" Cass asked. Janet's face folded. "No, men did. I only corrected the grammar. Samuel washed. I arranged. We were editors." "Names," Cass said, voice breaking. "Names rot," Janet said, "but ritual remains." Miles stepped out. "Janet." His voice was the tone you use with a ledge. "Walk back. We'll take your statement. You can help us find the men." "You won't," she said. "You'll feed me to the same machine that eats their letters." "The machine can print truth too," he said, "but it needs a witness." She smiled sadly. "I was the witness." She lifted the typewriter. "You think words can't drown?" she asked and dropped it into the lake. The cord wrapped her wrist like a promise. The weight yanked. Water took her to the knees, the waist, the chest. Miles hit the dock, grabbing her free arm. Vega reached for the cord, slicing at it with a pocket knife. The ribbon inked their hands black. The knot gave. They hauled her onto the boards, coughing. On shore, paramedics wrapped foil around a woman who had tried to make ritual into law. Janet stared at Miles, teeth chattering. "You made the script," she said. "I just staged it." "Scripts don't kill," he said. She shook her head. "They teach." Later in interview, Janet mapped her part. Mailing Polaroids to Cass, typing mirror to cue the angle, courting Reed with Eve's letters, arranging scenes after the killer left his harm. She kept insisting the men were random, untraceable strangers with access and entitlement. One wasn't. Lewis's role yielded a last frame blurry but enough, a face in profile near Paige on a night previous, hand on her elbow. He was a campus adjunct, theology department, a man with complaints from students filed and buried. He'd left the state the week the story broke. Vega sent the warrant chain west. Cass resigned. The forum shuttered until grief could stand without being watched. Reed pled to tampering, accepted years that felt like penance. Janet faced trial on multiple counts of abuse of a corpse, obstruction, conspiracy. She asked for a typewriter in holding. The answer was no. Miles flew back to New York with the last Polaroid in his pocket. The lake, flat as a lie. In the corner, his silhouette, accidental author. On the back, typed faintly before the ribbon died. When the past tries to sit in your present, he didn't need the rest. He stood, let the plane's engine noise fill the sentence, and didn't set out a chair. End of story and end of chapter. Thank you for listening and supporting our channel. Don't miss the next case. Subscribe now to stay up to date with the Miles Harrington mysteries.